This is the second part of our practice test where there's no multiple choice questions. So we're starting from these questions. We'll be doing questions 1 to 8, and the challenge section I'll do in a different video. So with this one, the first thing I notice is that p is to the power of 0, and we know anything to the power of 0 is just a number 1. Okay, so that p is basically gone. And 6 times 1 is just 6. So if you wanted to, imagine it wasn't even there. Okay, so that p is gone. And now I've got a power outside the bracket, so I have to go 2 times that power 1 and 2 times the power 3. That 7's outside, so we don't include that. So now we've got 6q to the power of 4 times 7. And we're going to have p to the power of 3 times 2 is 6 and 1 times 2 is 2. And our final step, multiply our numbers. 6 times 7 is 42. And because we're multiplying and we've got algebra, we know the first index laws, we add the powers of the same base. I've got a q here and a q there. Q is the same base, so 4 plus 2 is 6. And p to the power of 6 just sits there. And that should have been your final answer. Our next one, you notice we have division and we're dividing fractions. Your first step is, whenever you see division and fractions, we need to turn this to times. And we know how to do this. You just flip or swap this side here, the right hand side. So we end up with 6 over 7xyz, that's the same, times 14 is now up here, x squared and z over 3. And now all you got to do is simplify before you multiply. And we know we can simplify anything from top and bottom. I'll start with 6 and 3. I can divide 3 by 3, which is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now here I've got 7 and 14. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 14 divided by 7 is 2. And now for my variables, I've got an x here and 2 x's up here. So that x is gone. And 2 take away 1 is just 1. So I've got 1x left. I've got no y on top anywhere, so the y is stuck there. But I've got a z here and a z there. So they're both gone. So now what I end up with is 2 over 1 times y is just y times 2x, so x there, over and just 1. And multiply this out. I just squeeze it up here. So our answer will be 2 times, so multiply the top, 2 times 2 is 4, and the x just sits there, over y times 1 is y. And that should have been your final answer. With our next two questions, we should be pretty confident on how to do these. We've done so many examples. First one, we're multiplying, so we know any powers, any bases, we add their powers. Numbers, just 6 times 2 is 12. Now the shortcut is write all the different variables you see. I've got an a and a b. And now add the powers of a and b. 2 plus 3 for a is 5. 3 plus 1 for b is 4. Done. This one here, we're dividing. So really we're taking away our powers because the division is the opposite to multiplication. So if we add the powers here, we subtract them. Numbers do as normally. 18 and 3, can I divide them? Yes, I can. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 18 divided by 3 is 6. If you want to start writing it down on your fraction line, you can. Now, 7a's on top, 1 on the bottom. Smallest amount is gone. 7 take away 1 is 6. So I've got a to the power of 6 on top. I've got 1b on top and 4 on the bottom. That's gone. 4 take away 1 is just 3. So b to the power of 3 is on bottom. And 5c is on top and 6 on the bottom. Smallest amount is gone. And 6 take away 5 is just 1. So c on the bottom. And that should have been your answer. This one can be invisible. And that's it. Okay, with this one here, we are not multiplying anything. Our operations in between everything is either subtraction or addition. So with this one, we just add like terms or apples with apples. I'm going to circle to the left so I can see exactly what's negative and what's positive. Because there's quite a few negatives and positives, and it's a positive too. And now, start with our x squareds. How many x squareds do you see? There's there and there. So what's 2 minus a 1? 2 minus 1 is just 1, and x squared. And we know that 1 can be invisible, but I'll leave it there for now. And next, I've got an x here. Any more x's? Yes, here. So what is minus 5 plus 2? So use your calculator if you need to. Minus 5 plus 2 is negative 3, by negative 3x. And we're done. and we happen to have numbers by themselves. So what is 2 plus 1? 2 plus 1 is just positive 3. And that should have been your final answer. And the 1 can be invisible. Now, question 4 is a multiple choice question, and it asks you how can we write this in a different way. So we know to the power of 3 is saying 4a times 4a times 4a 3 times. That's all it's saying. And we know there's also an invisible times in between the 4 and a. So we could also write it like this. 4 times a times 4 times a times 4 times a. It's exactly the same thing. There's multiplication everywhere. So for question 4, your answer, let's have a look. Question 4, we can see there are no, this C has only one 4. D, we're adding, which is wrong. It looks like the answer is E, because we've got 4 times 4 times 4 3 times, and A times A times A 3 times. So you should have circled E for that one. Our next one involves substitution. So if U is 7 and V is -2, what do we get? So make sure you use brackets when substituting. So V is -2, so here I have -2. Minus, put the minus down, or take away. Now I've got 4 times U. I'm going to just put a bracket, there's an invisible times there. U is just 7 over 3 times V, and V is -2. Now work out everything on top and bottom, and then simplify what we can. Now I haven't left much room, so I'll just rub the question off. So I'll continue up here. All right, so I've just got -2. The bracket can go disappear now. But here I've got and then a minus, and then 4 times 7 is 28. Over 3 times a -2 is -6. Now, before we start simplifying anything, you first do this part. What's -2 minus 28? They're both negative, so we just add them. So 2 plus 28 is just 30, but don't forget to add the negative. So we have -30 over -6. And -30 divided by -6, 2 negatives make a positive, and 30 divided by 6 is just 5. So you should have had +5 as your answer. And for B, doing the exact same thing, substituting. So we've got 3 times V, so 3, and then V is, what's V again? -2. Don't forget to write the minus down, and then we've got 4, bracket, U is +7. So don't forget there's an invisible times here. So then 3 times -2 is -6. Take away, 4 times 7 is 28. So once again, they're both negative. So what is 28 plus 6? So that'll be 34. And don't forget to add the negative. So you should have had -34 as your answer. Our next one involves our fraction skills. We are adding, so we know whenever we add or subtract fractions, we must have the same denominator. We happen to have algebra in this one, but we do the exact same thing. So to make 3 and 5 the same, the lowest common multiple or denominator I can think of is 15. So I'll just times them with each other. So 3 times 5, and what you do to the bottom, do to the top, and 5 times 3 on this side. So we end up with, I'm going to write them all on the same denominator. So it's all going to be over 15, and it's important that you do this step. So we've got 2x times 5 is 10x, it's a plus, and x times 3 is just 3x. Now have a look, can we add 10x plus 3x? Yes, we can, they are like terms. 10 plus 3 is 13, and we've got x over 15. Can we simplify 13 and 15? No, we can't. There's no factor that goes into both numbers, so that should have been your final answer. With question 6b, you notice that we've got an A on the bottom. And remember, A is just a number. It could be 7 times 2, 7 times 3. So to make them the same, we've got to times this side by what? The exact same number, which we're calling A. And we must do the same thing to the top. So our common denominator will be 7A. And 3 times A is just 3A minus, and then the 4 is the same. And now, be very careful. If you remember what we learned in class, can I cross these A's off? No, I can't, because there's no A with this 4. See that takeaway separating 3A and 4? Because there's a subtraction here, we cannot just cross off these A's. If I had an A here, then yes, okay? But we must do the same thing to all 3 sections. And if you're wondering why, it's because we really have this. 3A over 7A, take away 4 over 7A. the 4 has its own 7a, and the 3a has its own 7a. Okay, so they all must get a turn with the 7a up here. So that should have been your final answer. Our next one, 7a. This is nice and easy. Simplify before you multiply. A down here, a up top. A 3 and a 6, divide by 3, it's 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Both b's are on top, so we can't simplify them. So we end up with, well, we've got a 1 times 2 is just 2. B times b, add the powers, is b squared. And 1 times 1 is just 1. So your final answer should look like this. 2b squared. Nice and easy. Our next one, once again, we have fractions and we have division. So we know the first step, turn this to times, we swap the right hand side. So we have now 6q over 5p times 20q over 9p. And now simplify what we can before we multiply. I've got, unfortunately, both my q's are on top and both my p's are on top. So I can't simplify them, but I can simplify my numbers. 5 and 20 divided by 5, it's 1. 20 divided by 5 is 4. 6 and 9, I can divide them both by 3. Divided by 3, it's 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And now multiply it out and we're done. So I've got, if you want to write it out again to see it more clearly, we have 2q over 1p, or just p, times 4q over 3p. And now multiply it out. I'll squeeze it up here. So we've got 2 times, up top, we've got 2 times 4 is 8. And q times q, don't forget to add the powers. So 1 plus 1 is 2. Over, on the bottom, we have 1, invisible 1 times 3, that's just 3. But p times p, add the powers of p and p, so we've got p squared. Sorry, it's a bit squishy, but that should have been your answer. 8q squared over 3p squared. Our next one, we have to expand. We should be pretty much experts at this by now. So we know everything is multiplied by, it's a negative 2x. So be careful with that negative. If you can do it mentally, go ahead. I'll put it in brackets to show some working out. So minus 2x times x is my first step. There's a plus in the middle, so put the plus down. In my next bracket, once again, minus 2x times, we've got 3x squared. Now, simplify what we can. So minus 2 times 1 is just minus 2. X times x, add the powers. So we have x squared, plus, put the plus down. In these brackets, we've got minus 2 times 3, that's minus 6. And x times x squared, 1 plus 2 is 3. And we can see what happens now. A positive and a negative make a negative. So we end up with minus 2x squared minus 6x cubed. Can we combine these and simplify them? Unfortunately, we can't. X squared is different to x cubed, so we stop here. And that should have been your final answer. All right, and the final question for this section is factorizing. Once again, we are experts at factorizing. So it's opposite to expanding. Get your brackets ready. And a plus goes in the middle. So starting with 2 and 4, what's the highest factor of 2 and 4? I can divide them both by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is just 2. I'll change my color, do a light blue. All right, so 2 on the outside, so 1 left over here and 2 left over there. Next, 3 A's on this side and 3 A's on that side. The same amount of A's, I can take out 3 A's then, and they're just gone. Oops, sorry, missed that. So there are no A's at all in the brackets because we had the same amount on both sides. Next, I've got 4 B's here and 6 B's here. Take out our smallest amount, which is 4 B's. And then on this side, 6 take away 4 is 2. So we end up with B squared on this side. And last of all, I've got a C that's just by itself. There's no C on this side. I can't take it out, so it's stuck there. And there's your answer. This one can now become invisible, and that's it. And you know to double check, if you expand this, do you get what you started off with? And it looks like that we do. So keep practicing and let me know if you need any more help. Thank you.